This NFL Week 8 injury news and updates plus player prop targets edition of the Propcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Sign up with promo code MACHINE to get 50% deposit bonus of up to $1,000. And we're also brought to you by Rhythm. Start crushing college football and the NFL with Rhythm. Get your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM.
And taking a shot to Brown downfield. He makes the catch, and he gets in for the touchdown. The catch is made by Calvin Ridley. Wilson, as he throws deep downfield. It's going to be caught by Ridley.
Welcome, everyone, to the Propcast, part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. Entering NFL Week 8 of the regular season, and going to get into all the injury news and updates. We have obviously injuries to discuss, guys that are coming back, but you guys know how we do it here on this episode of the Propcast. Get you guys caught up on all the injury news that are happening around the NFL. But joining me here to help me break everything down from the injury standpoint, we'll talk about some player prop targets as well. I think we've been doing really, really well with those as well. He's the star of the show. It's Sebastian Fearon. Sebastian, what's going on, brother? How you doing?
Hey, man, pretty good. I mean, we were just talking offline, but week was looking good, and then afternoon slate and yesterday hit, and wow, that we picked up some injuries real fast. So
yeah, it was interesting to watch. I think we're watching the morning games. Nothing really transpired, but then the afternoon and then leading into Monday Night Football, a lot of injuries that did transpire. We'll get to all of that here in a minute, of course. I think the one team that was absolutely decimated by injuries was the Chargers, especially at that wide receiver position. I think that'll be the theme of the show here today.
Oh, yeah.
Not a good week for our teams. I know we can do a little fandom here before we get into the games here and stuff. But CJ Stroud, man, I know there's a lot of conversations that are happening that, hey, has he hit that sophomore wall? But I keep reminding people that last year it was his obviously rookie year. They were playing a last place schedule, so you were playing some easier defenses. It was his first year in the league, so these teams really don't have a lot of tape on a guy like CJ Stroud. And also, we're down our number one wide receiver right now with Nico Collins as well. So I think the offense has looked less or subpar, I should say, especially obviously not having Nico Collins right now. I know Joe Mixon has come back and looked really, really good for this Texans team. I know you and I discussed that a few weeks ago. But hopefully they're able to turn around here. I'm not sure how much you want to get into the Eagles and Giants there, Sebastian, but just not a good week, my man.
Was it? Did they play? Did the Giants play? I've already pronounced that team dead to me. So once Andrew Thomas went out, like I gave my eulogy on here last week, man, it's tough. It's tough, man. Seeing Saquon Barkley do that, Benedict Barkley come back in. That was not fun. It was not fun as a Giants fan. I'm glad there's fantasy football and sports gambling because when your team sucks, you have something to look forward to for the NFL weeks.
Did you see the clip between Sirianni and Barkley?
I did not. I think I hate Nick Sirianni more than Barkley, so I tend to stay away from them.
So maybe this will or I think this will give you a little bit more respect for Saquon. So obviously the game was out of hand and he was having a really, really good day on the ground. And I think at this point they were ready to pull the starters out of the game. Yeah. And so long conversation short, Nick Sirianni goes up to Saquon on the bench there and goes, "Hey, you're 13 yards away from reaching your career high. You want to go back in and get it?" And Saquon goes, "No, I'm good. I want to." He said, "I don't want to go back in. I just want to let these younger guys eat and get their playing time." So, he had the opportunity there to, stick it to his former team, get a career high for his rushing yards there. But, he said no. He's like, we have the victory in hand and we're up by, I think it was 3+ touchdowns at that point. He said, no, man, let those younger guys get in. So I think that really gave me respect for Saquon Barkley was able to do there, because when we talk about these players, man, you always want to stick it to your former team, especially in that first game back on the road. But I thought that was really commendable by Saquon there.
Yeah, that's one way to take it. I just took that as Nick Sirianni's a giant asshole.
That too.
But no, definitely respectful of Saquon. It's just hard. You go to a rival, especially the Eagles.
Yeah.
It's just hard for me to root for you, but I'm sure he's a great guy. and all that. But that individual decision was respectable.
Yeah, 100%. All right, before we get into NFL Week 8 injury news and updates, here, just want to take a moment, thank our listeners and our loyal fans here that do listen to the Propcast here. Appreciate everybody that does tap in with us every single week. All the tweets, DMs that we do get, definitely appreciate it. But if you could do us a favor, head over to Spotify, give us a 5-star rating. Only you can help prevent corporate gambling from taking over. All right, Sebastian, let's get into it here, man. NFL Week 8 kicks off on Thursday Night Football. We got the Minnesota Vikings. They'll head west to take on the Rams in this Thursday Night Football game. Currently, as it stands, the Vikings are a 2.5-point road favorite here with a total of 48. What are we looking at for injuries for this game?
Yeah. Well, let me first say this game, if there's a trap game, I mean, gee whiz, all the money is pouring in on the Vikings. It seems so easy the Vikings are going to go in and take care of this bad Rams team. And yeah, I think I saw 90% of the money on DraftKings on the Vikings, and it was actually at -3 earlier today. So the lines moved in the other direction. So interesting things going on. But the good news is there's some definite player props that I think that we can target here. We're going to start with running back Aaron Jones, hamstring injury. Limited practice this past 2 days. I'm not worried. He played all of last week. I think they're just being smart by not pressing him with the hamstring. You just want to be careful there. He's played through these injuries before. Typically, hamstrings, I don't love players playing through, a la Mike Evans, where we see talk about a little bit later. But with him playing last week and him being able to monitor these injuries, I actually expect him to be good to go. TJ Hawkinson, a guy who's trying to come back off the IR. He had a limited practice. He hasn't had a full practice yet. He's still only 10 months out from his ACL. I think the plan all along was for really not this week, but next week, coming off that mini bye that they would get there. So I would be very shocked if Hawkinson's out there 10 months off an ACL plus, really, not just an ACL. I would expect him to not be there. And then they're getting back, though, a guy who I do expect off IR, offensive guard Dalton Reisner, coming back from back injury, 2 straight full practices. That's a starting lineman back in the lineup for this team, which is a plus. Now, linebacker Blake Cashman, excuse me, did not practice 2 days in a row, toe injury, so don't expect him to be out there. Other side of the ball, Rams a little bit more beat up, especially on the defensive side, which is when we get to one of these props I'm really kind of key on right now. Linebacker Troy Reeder, no practice this week with hamstring, expect him to be out. Defensive end Braden Fisk, also no practice this week with a back injury, expect him to be out. And then Neville Gallimore, who would back up kind of that defensive line there. He's limited, so he's got a shot to play. But, that defense, especially that front 7, is a bit beat up. Already one of the worst rush defenses in the league, which brings me to Aaron Jones. I think Aaron Jones, especially rushing, I know he does some great things out of the backfield as receiving, but I think the way that the Vikings are able to attack this Rams defense is really to just run right down their throat. And I think they've been able to do that with success. So I really love Aaron Jones rushing. I'm playing his alt ladders, all the way up there. And then the other prop I like is Matthew Stafford passing. The Vikings defense, as good as they are, they do give up a lot of yards, usually because they're playing from ahead. This is a situation where Jared Goff was able to get off on him a little bit last week, even in a competitive game. So I do think Matthew Stafford with Cooper Kupp, he should be back this week. Full practices coming off the high ankle sprain. I do expect him to be good to go. Now for Puka Nacua, they just opened his window today. First practice today, limited. I don't expect him to be able to go this week, but definitely a good sign for next week in week 9. And then Jordan Whittington still dealing with the shoulder injury, limited practice. I need a full practice from him to have any type of confidence there. But I like Stafford and like Jones on the ground in this game for sure.
Yeah, I'll mention Stafford here real quickly, what you were talking about there, Sebastian. Prior to last week, the Detroit Lions against the Vikings, I should say. If you want to look at his completions to go over in this game, or if you want to look at his pass attempts to go over, every single quarterback thus far this season has had at least 22 completions against the Vikings pass defense. I know the number right now is at 22.5 for Matthew Stafford, but I also couldn't talk you off of over 33.5 pass attempts as well for Matthew Stafford. Jared Goff only had 25, but prior to that, 42 for DJ, 36 for Brock Purdy, 43 for CJ Stroud, 54 for Jordan Love, and then 54 for Aaron Rodgers there as well. So I think that's a great call there by you for Matthew Stafford. That's one I've had my eye on. They've also given up multiple touchdowns over the past 3 weeks. They gave a 4 to Jordan Love, 2 to Rodgers, and 2 to Goff last week as well. So if you want to look at Stafford over on his passing touchdowns, I'm pretty sure that number's at 1.5 for him. But I think that would be a good look there as well. You got anything else for this game, Sebastian?
No, I like that, especially with Cooper Kupp coming back. I know, Kyron Williams is definitely a touchdown hog out of the backfield, but he's a threat in the receiving game, and let's be honest, they love Cooper Kupp around the red zone. So I think with him being back, that's going to the attempts are definitely going to shoot up for the Rams there.
All right, let's get over. All right, let's get over to the battle of the AFC North teams. Starting on Sunday here, we got the Baltimore Ravens. They will be in Cleveland to take on the Browns. Currently, as stands, the Ravens are a 9.5-point favorite in this game with a total of 44. And some big news, at least for the Cleveland Browns side here, Sebastian.
Yeah, I mean, we all saw it. Deshaun Watson's in real time. His Achilles tendon ruptured, and his basically ripped off the bone there. It's pretty brutal whenever you see that type of injury, but it's very obvious. You see the calf muscle reverberate. Essentially, that tendon snapped off the heel bone, and now that muscle is shrinking back because it doesn't have anything to attach to. So he's done for the season. I think that's pretty obvious. Don't really need to get into him too much. I mean, 10 to 12 month recovery. It's going to be a grind for him to get back. Who knows what team, where he's going to be at that point if they bring him back. The other backup quarterback, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, dealing with a finger injury, negative x-rays, but it's the situation where is he going to be able to grip the ball? Definitely some concern here for him being able to play. Now, for all the Jameis fans, this is obviously good news because they got to play him at this point. There's no one else really left. So at this point, I am expecting Jameis to be able to play, which I think does help out some of those wide receivers if you want to get into the summer's props. Whether that's going to help out the game script, who knows, because he's probably going to give the ball away a couple times. But this Ravens secondary is very susceptible, giving up like the Vikings, a good team, giving up a ton of yards. We saw Baker go for over 300 yards last night. And on their side of the ball, Marlon Humphrey, who had 2 interceptions, was ruled out of the game with a knee injury. Now they do get back Arthur Millette, their kind of slot cornerback there, who's been on the IR since the start of the season. So, I do think Marlon Humphrey is a little bit ahead of Arthur Millette. So I don't think it's exactly a -1/+1 there. But some concerns there for the already kind of depleted and not very good Baltimore secondary. And then it looks like we're going to get Jameis with no Amari Cooper there for the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, I think that obviously unfortunately with the injury for Deshaun Watson, I think he's played his last down for the Cleveland Browns. Who knows, like you mentioned, where he ends up next season once he hopefully does make that recovery after suffering that type of injury. How do you think Nick Chubb looked? I know the numbers didn't really jump off the page there. He did have a touchdown, but how do you think Nick Chubb looked in his first game back?
Yeah, I think it kind of went exactly how I thought it was going to go. I think he went for 11 carries for like under 24 yards and a touchdown, something like that. I was on his under. I was on his alt under for rushing yards. It's kind of something I gave out. Nothing, against the guy, but he's facing stack boxes, and now he's just trying to get back into the field. He looked okay. Nothing really crazy. I think he's going to look similar to that. They might casually ramp up his touches. But again, I mean, this is going to be a tough matchup. I don't think I'm really going to be flying over. We'll see where the number lands, but I don't think this is something I'm running to the counter to get. If anything, it's going to be guys like Cedric Tillman or an Elijah Moore looking for somebody who's going to have a connection with Jameis. Is it going to be Njoku? That's where I'm kind of targeting in this game as far as prop wise. And then obviously, if you want to go Ravens, you can talk to Derrick Henry angle. He's just running through everybody at this point.
It was funny because he mentioned after the game that he needs to work on his speed because he should have scored on that multiple breakout touchdowns that he did have there. So I think that's just a scary proposition. But to your point about David Njoku last week, 14 targets, 10 receptions, 76 receiving yards, and 1 touchdown for him. So I think that theme will probably continue with Jameis Winston more than likely now getting the start here for the Cleveland Browns. All right, Sebastian, before we move it along here to the next games on the Sunday schedule, let me tell everyone about our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Pick'em has one of the biggest menus for all sports: NFL, college football, MLB, MMA, NBA, NASCAR, and so much more. Boosttober is upon us, which means you're getting a spooky amount of profit boost and much more. And with the NBA tipping off, every NBA Pick'em entry from October 19th through October 27th will be boosted. You can now use specials and boosts on all flex entries. I'm going to have Zach Edey higher on his rebounds for Wednesday night in my underdog fantasy entry for the NBA there. So sign up with promo code MACHINE to claim your special pick and first-time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. That's underdogfantasy.com. Make sure you use our promo code MACHINE. All right, Sebastian, let's keep it moving here, man. Let's get over to the next game on the card here that has implications. We'll go over to the Indianapolis Colts. They are in my part of the world to take on the Houston Texans. Texans currently sitting as a 5.5-point favorite in this game with a total of 46. What are we looking at for Colts and Texans?
Yeah, not a ton here, but some big ones. For the Colts side of the ball, Jonathan Taylor is expected to be practicing this week, coming off the high ankle sprain. It's going to put him right around that 4-week mark, where we expect that. I know he even said he was surprised, but it is a 4 to 6 week injury, even if you're one of the best backs in the NFL. High ankles are high ankles. So I do expect him to be back. I don't expect him to be 100%, but I do think he's going to give it a shot, and we'll see practice. But I think there's a good chance he does play, which is obviously a boost for that Colts team. Again, I don't think 100%, but still, 85% Jonathan Taylor is probably better than Trey Sermon. And then DeForest Buckner, defensive tackle, also from his high ankle sprain injury. He's expected back to practice this week. Obviously, a big part of that defensive line. Their Colts defense has been ravaged by injuries. They've been dealing with a lot. They've been kind of scrappy, got up in some spots. Obviously, they went against a pretty poor Miami offense last week, but a couple big nine players expected back for the Colts this week. Not much on Houston's side of the ball just yet.
Yeah, so in obviously the return of Nico Collins, but I think that'll be still another couple of weeks away for the Houston Texans. And like you mentioned with Colts, we're missing some key guys there, but looks like they'll be back this week for this division game with the Texans. We'll move it along here to the next game on the board. We got the Philadelphia Eagles. They are headed to Cincinnati to take on the Bengals. Bengals currently sitting as a 2.5-point favorite in this game with a total of 47.5. Sebastian, what are we looking at for Eagles and Bengals?
Yeah, this one was a bit interesting because the Bengals side of the ball, it looked like they were going to be definitely missing two big players there, but that might not be the case. Geno Stone got carted off with an air cast on his leg. They basically thought he fractured his shin, but it turns out it was just a contusion, which is really just a bruise. So he actually has a good chance to play this week. He was in the locker room, no crutches, no brace or anything. So it looks like he might be able to go there starting safety for them. And then left tackle Orlando Brown dealing with a knee sprain. This one's a bit interesting. I've seen it called like a calf sprain. Something said like a tennis calf. I don't know. Some I think Rappaport reported it, a tennis injury. I don't know. I've never heard of that at all. I've been doing injuries for a long time, and I don't know what the fuck he's talking about. There's tennis elbow, but I was really confused. I don't know where they got that from. So who knows? But anyway, right now it's day-to-day with a knee sprain. So he's definitely the one that's more questionable. Obviously, your left tackle being out. We saw what happened to the Giants. We saw what happened to the Eagles without their left tackle. So that's going to be interesting. Already a bad offensive line there. For the Philadelphia side of the ball, offensive guard Mekhi Becton ruled out with a concussion. Now, hey, we saw Marvin Harrison Jr. play 1 week after a concussion. It's starting to get some more variability as the season goes on. This is what we saw last year. It seemed like everybody was out for a week. Now it's kind of case dependent. So we can't exactly rule him out right now, but he's definitely fighting an uphill battle. And then a big one, linebacker Zach Bond left the game unable to return. Need a little more info here on his shoulder injury, but he is the leading tackler. He's definitely been a bright spot for them. This is a linebacker core that historically has been very bad the past couple of years. So he's been a nice bright spot, leading tackler again. So if he's not able to go, that's a big injury. So a couple guys pending here on both sides, not your huge names, but guys you really should pay attention to as far as picking out this matchup. And then obviously we'll look for Jordan Mailata. I don't expect him to be able to come back after getting carted off with his hamstring injury. I'm thinking it's going to be closer to at least 2 weeks, if not 4. But we'll see as he comes back. Because obviously, I mean, as good as the Eagles looked, the Giants were able to get to Hurts early and often.
I don't know if it's just me. Obviously, you've been covering the injuries in the NFL, I mean, for a very long time. Does it feel like this season there's been more hamstring injuries, or that's just kind of been the theme like over the past several seasons?
Yeah, it's the number one most burdensome injury in the NFL. I mean, yeah, it's tough. I feel like every season I'm like, damn, there's like a shit ton of injuries. So I guess I would have to look and really look at the data. But honestly, there's a lot of concussions for sure.
Yeah, 100%.
I would say that's been the past couple years. I don't know if that's just better reporting. When you talk about data, is it really a true increase, or is it we just recording it better? Or are we just getting the data to a better point? But there's definitely been a lot more injuries to big players, at least on the offensive side of the ball. I will say that this is, especially this week, it's getting a little ridiculous.
I feel like that was a theme as well during the baseball season as well, because there was a lot of like big name pitchers that were having elbow issues that turned into Tommy John surgeries that put them out for pretty much the almost in the not only this season but also for the next season as well. So it's just crazy to see all these like big names like you mentioned getting injured.
Yeah, well, like you said, I mean, look, at the more they tweak with this preseason and they're changing things and they're bringing a preseason game, they're taking a preseason game away. The more they tweak with that and the more these guys are holding out and, not getting their full ramp up and things like that, it definitely has an effect, right? I mean, two guys that are, were holding out or having some issues as far as obviously Brandon Ayuk, he was dealing with some things. And then, I mean, obviously the ACL is, you can't do anything about that. It's not really anything there. So it's hard to prepare for a full season in the NFL. Let's say that.
Yeah, 100%. All right, let's get over to the next game here. We'll talk about the New York Jets. They are headed to Foxborough to take on the Patriots. Patriots currently catching 7 points in this division game with a total of 41.5. Patriots making the trip back from across the pond where they did lose to the Jacksonville Jaguars. But what are we looking at for injuries between the Jets and the Patriots here, Sebastian?
Yeah, mostly on the New York side of the ball. I'll talk about the Patriots really quickly. Rookie wide receiver Jalen Polk likely left the game with a concussion, ruled out with a head injury, so his availability is in question. He's been dealing with a bit of the yips. I mean, he's been dealing with some drops anyway, so not sure how much of a loss that really is for that New England passing offense that looked a lot better. I talked a lot about Drake May last week, was able to ride his passing ladders pretty much all the way to the top. So, it's that offense is looking a little bit better, and it matters because that Jets secondary is really beat up. They were already without Michael Carter last game and their nickel back there in DJ Reed and Tony Adams, their safety got ruled out. Like they're pretty beat up in that secondary there. So if Drake May can have some time, he might have some opportunities here against a Jets defense that Russell Wilson just came back and lit up pretty well. I was on his passing ladder as well, and he was able to hit home there. So, something you want to look at Drake May's passing. We'll see where they put the price. I mean, it was kind of laughably low against a terrible Jaguars defense last week. So they might adjust. So something to keep in mind. But I do think there's going to be opportunities there. Tony Adams getting ruled out with that hamstring. I do not expect him to be back, but they might be able to get back guys like Michael Carter, DJ Reed, who weren't playing last week. And Hassan Reddick, the holdout is apparently over. Yep. So that should help on the pass rush end, assuming he was able to stay in shape and be ready to actually play football. And then finally, offensive guard Elijah Tucker. He went out with an ankle injury. That Jets offensive line, was for as improved as they were supposed to be, they're not really looking too good. I know it doesn't help when you have old man Rodgers back there looking like a life alert patient, but dude, I mean, he's just so immobile. It's kind of like you almost feel bad for him. I think that's why these refs are throwing some of these like bullshit roughing the passer penalties. But
yeah,
if they don't have Elijah Tucker, he's one of their best offensive linemen. That's not good news, even against a bad Patriots defense.
Yeah, I tweeted this out after the Robert Saleh firing for the Jets. I was like, this Jets team going forward, they're probably going to be a team that you want to bet the full game over on. And I think we've seen that over the last 2 weeks where both their games have gone over the total. And coincidentally, the last two quarterbacks that they faced, Josh Allen and Russell Wilson, both had at least 2 passing touchdowns. They had allowed 2 combined passing touchdowns over the first 5 weeks to the opposition. But now it looks like that defense has now taken a step back where the offense was already a mess. So something to definitely keep an eye on as we move forward with this New York Jets team. All right, we'll move it along here to the next game. The games or the team that we talked about at the top of the episode just decimated by injuries here. NFC South battle, the Atlanta Falcons there in Tampa this week to take on the Buccaneers. Falcons currently laying 2.5 points in this road division game here. Total of 46 here, Sebastian. Falcons and Bucks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, we all saw Mike Evans, who, I mean, he did cash everybody's anytime touchdown, and then on his way to his second touchdown, re-injure that hamstring. he's a warrior for sure. I mean, Mike Evans is a guy who's played through a lot. He's played through
Yeah.
hamstring injuries before, but there's always a risk. There's a high re-injury risk. You feel better than before the tissue's actually healed, and there's the potential for that, right? I said, I tweeted it out as soon as it happened, like he's probably out at least 4 weeks, and they're telling he's expected back after the week 11 bye, kind of around that 4-week timeline there. So it's kind of that grade 2 hamstring. The thing about these soft tissue injuries is when there's a re-injury, they're always worse than the initial injury because you take a already damaged tissue and then you injure it further. So that's a situation where it's definitely tough, but I mean, you knew the risks. I'm sure the medical staff let him know the risks there. So that's unfortunate for Mike Evans. And then Chris Godwin is just an awful injury. I mean, it's the last 40 seconds of the game. You're down by double digits. I mean, we don't have to get into whether he should have been on the field or not and whether the hit was dirty, but his foot was essentially not facing the right direction in translation to his leg. So he dislocated his ankle. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some fracture there. He's going to be out for the season. I mean, the Bucs just lost arguably their 2 best players on their team. Now for the Falcons side of the ball, they're definitely a bit healthier. Offensive guard Matthew Bergeron, who's one of their better players, did leave with a neck injury. He was ruled out, so we'll have to see. That's a tough injury to deal with and come back with 1 week. From the props angle, I think you look at the Bucs in the rushing department. They've actually been able to run the ball pretty well. I think they'll obviously have to lean on that. I know people are going to be talking about whether it's McMillan or Shepard or Trey Palmer, Cade Otton. I think I'm just going to target, whether it's Bucky Irving or even a guy like Sean Tucker or Rashad White in the kind of rushing game. I think they'll have to lean on that. And then the Falcons there on the other side of the ball. We'll see. I mean, the Bucs pass defense has been pretty bad. Jamel Dean still on IR. So they picked up a couple injuries in that secondary as well. So we'll see there.
Yeah, I know Baker, after Mike Evans left, it seemed like it was a lot of the targets were going to Cade Otton. I mean, he ended up with a 100 receiving yard game for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So that may be someone you want to keep an eye on. Like Sebastian, you mentioned there, and over the last 3 weeks, the Falcons defense, you talked about their pass defense, have allowed at least 2 passing touchdowns in 3 straight weeks, and 4 out of the 5 last weeks. They've allowed at least 2 passing touchdowns. Patrick Mahomes, Baker Mayfield, Andy Dalton, and then last week Geno Smith had 2 passing touchdowns there as well. So it's just decimated right now by injuries for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in that wide receiving room. All right, let's move it along here to the next game, a non-conference matchup here. The Arizona Cardinals, they're headed down to South Beach to take on the Miami Dolphins. Dolphins currently laying 3 points in this game with a total of 46.5, and some big news for the Miami Dolphins here, Sebastian.
Yeah, I just saw something today. I mean, this was not really breaking because it was already expected, but yeah, he's expected to fully practice tomorrow. Tua Tagovailoa come back from those concussions. I'm ready to ride Tua. I'm going to be looking to play his passing over. I'm going to be looking to play on the Dolphins. I think this is going to be an exciting game with a lot of points. Tua Tagovailoa come back. I mean, he's had 4 weeks to come back from a concussion. I understand he's had a couple in the past few years, but there's not really a compounding effect. Like, it's been enough time. And if these concussions happen back to back, that's a different conversation. But it's been several months since his previous one, so I'm ready to fully ride Tua there and that passing offense that I'm sure Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle have just been chomping at the bit to have somebody competent back there. And then on the Arizona side, their best pass rusher right now, their leading sack leader, Dennis Gardeck, a really grinder player, tore his ACL. He's out for the season. And then cornerback Sean Murphy Bunting, their best cover guy, went into last week with a neck injury, played, re-injured it, and now he got ruled out. So I would expect him to miss some time there. So this is the Arizona Cardinals defense that just gave up 300+ yards to Justin Herbert and a bunch of janitors. So I'm excited for to see the Tua that led the NFL in passing. I think that Waddle and Hill run crazy on this defense.
Yeah, I mean, really need him back at this point to the Miami Dolphins as they're trying to just slip more and more into the bottom of the AFC East there. So if they want to have a chance to at least sniff the playoffs, they got to put together some wins here. And I think they can start doing that here against the Arizona Cardinals, who are on a short week, like we talked about, coming off of Monday Night Football. All right, before we continue the conversation here, let me tell everyone about our friends over at BetUS. We're brought to you by BetUS. Bet with the best in the business. BetUS. BetUS has been around for more than 30 years. Easily deposit using cryptocurrency and get lightning fast payouts. U.S. players are always welcome. Sign up and deposit $100 and you have a chance to win a 1964 Mustang. Use our link to sign up and get a 125% deposit bonus on your first 3 deposits. Just go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/betus. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/betus. Promo code SGPN. So they know that we sent you. BetUS, America's favorite sports book. And we're also brought to you by Rhythm. SGPN's proud partner Rhythm is the #1 AI-powered back sports betting platform that helps provide bettors of all levels the ability to build custom predictive betting models in seconds and get predictions for betting on money lines, spreads, totals, and props. Build your own model, copy one of the top performing models from the leaderboard, or press build a model for me, and Rhythm gives you predictions for every game and player prop, and also has a myriad of stats, research, and trend analysis to give you even more betting insights. Plus, Rhythm's NBA models are now live. Claim your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. All right, Sebastian, let's keep it rolling here, my man. Let's get over to the next game on the board here. We'll go over to the Buffalo Bills. They are headed to the Great Northwest to take on the Seattle Seahawks. Seahawks are currently a 3-point home underdog in this game with a total of 47. What are we looking at for Seahawks and the Bills?
Yeah, just 2 big ones here. For the Buffalo Bills, he was the leading tackler last season with Milano out. Now, Dorian Williams is kind of taking that over, but Terrell Bernard, linebacker there, he just came back from a pec injury and he was ruled out. He basically got stepped on and rolled his ankle. So just kind of need more information. It looks to be low ankle in nature based on kind of video. So if it is low ankle sprain and it is mild, he's got a chance to play. But if it's anything in the high ankle or medial ankle variety, or if it's kind of more than a mild low ankle sprain, then he's going to be out. So definitely one with question marks. We got to see practice participation will tell us all we need to know. And then DK Metcalf looks like he's dealing with a minor knee injury. I heard it been called a grade 1 MCL. I don't know if we've got official diagnosis there. But they did label him as week to week, but as I'm finding out, I don't think coaches know what the fuck week to week, day to day is. They're just throwing something out there because they'll say day to day and the guy's gonna be out 2 weeks, and they'll say week to week, he'll be practicing the next day. So one to monitor. It's minor. So if anything, it should just be this week, but he has a shot to play this week. So don't assume, you can't really assume one way or the other whether he's playing or not. If anything, based on kind of reports and the reactions and really the injury, I think he's got a good chance to play this week.
All right, let's move it along here to the next game. We'll go over to the Kansas City Chiefs. They are in Vegas to take on the Raiders. Chiefs currently laying 10 points on the road here with a total of 41. Sebastian, what are we looking at for Chiefs and the Raiders?
Yeah, I hope you like defense. If you like this game, it's going to be very ugly. Quarterback Aiden O'Connell, broken thumb, just put on IR. He's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks. So Gardner Minshew, who, I was excited for him to start. I thought he'd bring him a spark. He's looked terrible. He threw so many interceptions last week. He gave the game away at any chance he could. So sorry, Raiders fans, but you got to deal with that for at least another month. And then on the Chiefs side, wide receiver Juju Smith-Schuster, similar to Mike Evans, came into the week with an injury, hamstring injury. He played, then he got ruled out because he re-injured it. Can happen. It happens a lot. So I definitely expect him out this week, if not multiple weeks. And then really the biggest injury, cornerback Jalen Watson, one of the best cornerbacks in the league. That part of that defense, like what makes him so great is they just have long, lanky corners that really can cover everybody and let Chris Jones and Karlaftis go get home. He fractured his ankle. So in a similar situation to Chris Godwin, he's likely out for 3 to 4 months. So, there's a small chance he could return for a Super Bowl run. But at this point, you essentially want to kind of pencil him out for the rest of the year. That's a big blow to a really elite defense. Let's be honest, the defense is leading that team right now. So we'll have to see if they have somebody who can step up. I mean, Steve Spagnuolo seems to pull these guys out of the woodworks. Most of these guys are late round picks that blossom into NFL stars. So we'll see.
Yeah, I know the rumor here, or news that we got, I should say, that the Rams are opening to trading Cooper Kupp for a second-round draft pick, and they're willing to absorb the salary. So we'll see if the Chiefs make that phone call to get Cooper Kupp over there paired with Patrick Mahomes. That would be insane to see.
Yeah,
Honestly,
that'd be fun for
Chiefs.
everybody except basically only Chiefs.
That'd be fun for Chiefs fans. Yeah,
yeah, that's it.
All right, let's get over to the Chicago Bears. They are taking on the Commanders this week. Commanders are currently catching 2 points in this game with a total of 44. Sebastian, what are we looking at for Bears and Commanders?
Yeah, I mean, the big reason why is because we don't know if Jaden Daniels is going to play. I mean, he's dealing with a rib injury. It's great that he was smiling on the sidelines. It really doesn't mean too much of anything other than, it wasn't a rib fracture. He didn't have anything puncture his lungs, which is awesome. Initial x-rays were negative. Now, with these rib injuries, you got to be careful because a lot of times rib injuries, the x-ray initially can be negative, but they miss a hairline fracture or something. So until he starts responding well to football activities, especially throwing the ball, rotation is going to be an issue with the rib injury, even if nothing's fractured, if you have some cartilage damage. So he's called week to week. Again, I've quickly found out this NFL season that doesn't mean anything. Week to week, they could play, they could not play. So he is a big question mark. We're really not going to get a good picture until probably Thursday because, at Wednesday, I wouldn't expect him to be practicing. If he is, obviously, that's a great sign. But I think Thursday is really going to be when we're going to be able to get an indicator of how this is going to play out. And then for this Bears, just Jaquan Brisker still working through concussion protocol. Expect him to be back. Have already missing last week. And then Kyler Gordon, their defensive back, dealing with the hamstring injury. So a little bit beat up on the back end there. That's a good secondary that they have in Chicago. Obviously, the test gets a lot harder if Jaden Daniels is in the lineup.
Yeah, I'll definitely keep an eye out for as we progress through the week here. I thought that Thursday practice is usually a good indicator. We'll find out some of these guys are going to be out there or not. Sunday night football, we have the Dallas Cowboys. They are headed to the West Coast to take on the San Francisco 49ers. 49ers currently laying 4 points in this game with a total of 46.5. Sebastian, we got anything for Cowboys and Niners?
Definitely, it's a decent amount here because Brandon Ayuk, like we were talking about, ACL, MCL out for the season. Yeah, it's just awful. I mean, he was kind of already wrapped up, getting taken, and he got his knees taken out, and yeah, it was bad. So he's done for the season. You've got wide receiver Deebo Samuel, who was in the hospital with pneumonia. I'm sure fantasy managers were cursing at the win there, and then they probably felt like assholes when they realized he was in the hospital. But that's the game we play. He was released today, which is great news. Doesn't exactly tell us he's going to be ready to play. I mean, it's true a question mark where if it's bad enough that you had to go to the hospital, not many people, it's probably not advised he plays a football game in 6 days later, but these guys are different breeds. So we'll have to see if he's able to practice, but definitely not ready to pencil him in. And then Jawan Jennings also didn't practice at all. I know he's kind of the fantasy football waiver wire kind of darling right now. Personally, I think a guy like Ricky Pearsall, who is going to be on the field, is a little bit easier because not only did he not play last week, he didn't practice at all. So, we still need some questions on these hip injuries. Not exactly sure what's going on there with his hip, but it does. I mean, when they don't practice in any capacity, that tells me he's probably not super close. He might be able to play, but he's definitely going to be limited. So really to their big three, they've got some giant concerns there. And then on the Cowboys side, it's more the defense. Micah Parsons dealing with that high ankle sprain. He's expected to be a game time decision. This will be 4 weeks out from the high ankle sprain. That's right around the time you can return, right? That 4 to 6 week is where you can return, and he'll still be a little bit limited, but he could definitely be somewhat productive there for a decimated pass rush that they'll need. And then Deron Bland, cornerback for them, who's been on the IR since the first game. He's a game time decision, working his way back from that Jones fracture there. So they might get a couple guys back on Dallas, and San Francisco's going to be out a couple dudes. George Kittle lit them up last year. I think he's definitely a guy to target there if you want to get into the Ricky Pearsall game. But they got to be able to run the ball. So if they don't get Jordan Mason going there, I think it's going to be a long night for the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah, I mean, it just feels like every single week that we see, or every single season, that this San Francisco 49ers team just cannot stay healthy. I mean, last year, I think they were pretty fortunate with injury luck, but I mean, prior to that, it was just getting decimated by injuries. I think that's something that's continuing for the San Francisco 49ers. Speaking of other Niners here, Sebastian, before we wrap it up, I think we are expecting CMC back after their bye week, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. Yeah, I've been trying to. Yeah, that week 10 target date was kind of what I was hoping for this whole time. And I will say, similar to Tua, when he gets back, I mean, they've been so conservative and cautious with this. I'm ready to all systems go on him. I'm sure the market's going to be a little bit hesitant with him missing so much time, but when he gets back, I'm going to be pretty excited to play him pretty early and often there. So yeah, I would expect him to be at this point. It's tough because we haven't heard a whole ton, but the latest update is that week 10 kind of post bye is the target.
All right, so that is going to be the last game. We do have Monday Night Football featuring the Giants and the Steelers, but nothing significant as far as injury news does go there. That'll be it here. It was interesting this week. We didn't have any teams on bye. I don't know if that was like planned by the NFL.
Two years in a row. I was looking into it. Yeah, I don't know what it's. It's kind of a weird thing that hasn't happened for 13 years prior to, but
yeah,
whatever.
Interesting. All right, so that's going to wrap it up here for this week 8 injury news and updates. And we talked about some player props and guys that we will be looking at for this Sunday. I mean, make sure you guys follow Sebastian on Twitter, man. He's just absolutely crushing it when he's obviously has his injury news. He knows his information. He knows it, and he's able to capitalize in the player prop market. And it's not just regular bets. I mean, there's some nice long shots in there, alt bets in there, you know, guys scoring 2 touchdowns and all that good stuff. So make sure you guys follow Sebastian over on the Twitter machine at the DGen Doc. And of course, Sebastian, go ahead and plug your shows that you also have on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Yeah. Look, we definitely try to help you guys out. Obviously we're doing this on Tuesday nights, so there's not a lot of lines out. So we try to tell you guys to target, but definitely, you know, give myself and both Munaf a follow. We're definitely putting out plays throughout the week, you know, throughout the shows and definitely on the Twitter machine. Like he was mentioned in there. I mean, hey, we just hit Foster Moreau, who's guy we talked about last week, you know, 25 plus receiving yards, plus 265 hit in one of the first plays, right? We're talking about Javonte Williams there. So we're trying to make you guys cash if you're paying attention. So write these down, get on them early and often. But check out the DGen Docs where we are getting way more into the injuries and we're talking about how we're going to make money off of them. We're coming off a nice Monday night games there. We rode some passing ladders. And Derek was all over Baltimore, which obviously came in pretty heavy. And we are running a 100 subscribers contest. We are only about less than 15 subscribers away. We're trying to give away $100. So go over there, subscribe, submit proof, and boom, you can be entered to win $100.
What are you guys doing? Get over there. Subscribe to the DGen Docs. I mean, they're giving away free money. It takes literally less than a second to hit that subscribe button over there. So help them out. Get over there, subscribe, tell a friend. If you have already subscribed, tell a friend, tell a family member, whatever the case might be. Let's get those guys their first 100 subs and then beyond from there. All right, we'll be back next week for this Propcast episode, talking about more injuries and updates for the NFL season as we're getting ever so closer to the halfway point here of the NFL season. So we'll talk to you guys next week. Till then, good luck with your bets. Let's break these books off and always remember to let it ride.